Okay, well, I think we'll get started. So welcome, everyone. I'm Debbie Grusenmeyer here at Cornell, and we have several of the statewide dairy committee that are on here. Um, uh, the group of us put together this dairy quiz bowl kind of information session, learned about some topics, and then we'll do some Kahoot based on a lot of it based on the topic. This is our second we're doing 5 different workshops, presentations on this. And tonight we have Dr. Steve Mooney from Morrisville State College. And we, thank you, Steve, for being here and sharing your knowledge. He's going to talk about the rumen and dairy nutrition and focus on that side of things. So with that, he's going to give a presentation. If you have any questions along the line, either put them in the chat or raise your hand and we will try to get those answered. You can wait to the end, or you can actually give those questions during the presentation. I think
if you want to ask during the presentation, you're more than welcome to. I don't know if I'll be able to see the chat, but we can hopefully see them as we go, answer them as we go. It makes a lot more sense.
So between myself and the other committee members, we'll monitor that chat to make sure that we don't miss any questions. And I think sometimes when the presentation is going on, you have the question, it makes more sense to ask that question then, but you know.
Yeah, that certainly does. It looks like I've got the chat box over here on the side. So between the 3 of us, we can keep track of it.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mooney. He's going to do his presentations, and when he's done, and all our questions are answered, then we will. Stephanie has Ziernik, sorry. She has put together a Kahoot that we will do at the end of that. So, and we'll give you instructions on that if you weren't on last week in regards to how to get on, but it's pretty simple.
Okay, I seem to have lost the chat, so just keep me informed.
I will.
For those of us that are old enough, this is one of my favorite Far Side cartoons. Hey, wait a minute, this is grass. We've been eating grass. So the cows are surprised that happens. But we want that to happen, and we want them to turn it into things that we like. So this is kind of a dairy bowl review that's kind of a compressed kind of view of the things I teach in my nutrition classes, especially to get you started. And you really need to understand how a cow and their digestive tract relates to how we feed them, why we feed what we do, and then what they do with it once they've eaten it. So this might be also called Why Cows Are So Cool. I just like cows a whole lot, and nutrition to me is kind of fun. So if you look at a cow up here at our dairy complex, I'm up here right now. She's going to eat about 55 pounds of dry matter every day. In that 55 pounds, there's going to be about 10 pounds of crude protein, 24 pounds of non-fiber carbohydrate. That's going to be like starch and sugar and whey, all those sorts of things. And then everybody's favorite NDF, neutral detergent fiber. We're going to have about 17 pounds in the rations we feed our cows, about 2 pounds of ash or minerals, and 2 pounds of fat. The cow takes these inputs. We also need to mention that she drinks about 25 gallons of water on average. Higher producers are going to drink more. Later lactation animals are going to drink less. And she's also going to eat about 6 gallons of water. So about half her intake, what she chews, is water as well. So you're looking at about 30 gallons going into that cow every day. That's way more than you or I could drink if we tried. But the cows need that much to manage what they do. Average cow out here, puts out about 95 pounds of milk. In that milk, they're putting out about 3.9, almost 4 pounds of fat. We got a 4.2 test up here on Holsteins, which is pretty good. 3 pounds of protein, a little less than a pound of mineral. You got 4.5 pounds of milk sugar, that's our lactose. And then a balance of that is water, about 83 pounds of water. Also coming out of that cow is about 250 pounds of wet manure that if you dried it down, which is probably something you don't want to do in your home oven or home dehydrator, you'd have about 28 pounds of dry matter that comes out the other end of that cow. So how does she get from what she eats to what she puts out in a given day? So the main thing about that is the digestive system. The cow's going to eat things that we could not do well on. We could not do well on living on corn silage and haylage. Our digestive tract is not designed to do that. But the cows have a much more complex digestive tract than us, and that enables them to take things that are plentiful but not readily available and convert them into the things we love: ice cream, just regular milk, chocolate milk, all that fun stuff, yogurt, cheese especially. So a cow takes very simple inputs and is able to generate within their digestive system their required nutrients. If we think about any sort of mammal on the planet, there are about 50 different nutrients they require. Cow certainly in her body requires these, but we don't have to feed them all because she can generate a bunch of them herself. And this is based a lot on the conversion of the cellulose. We take the plant cell walls, known as NDF, and we break them apart, or the cow breaks them apart into a usable energy source and into high quality protein for the cow to live on and produce that milk that we hope they do. So most of you know your parts of your ruminant stomach, right? So we got 4 compartments: the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum. So we have a view here. We're looking at the cow from her left side, and the omasum is going to be closest to us. You got the abomasum, and then behind that on the right side of the cow is pretty much going to be all rumen. So let's talk about those 4 different compartments of this ruminant stomach. So the first one we'll talk about is the rumen. And each of these structures, each of these compartments has its own unique absorptive feature. So rumen has papillae to increase the absorptive surface area. So if you take a look at this, it looks like a shag carpet kind of thing. So if you ever get your chance to put your hand inside a cow, we have one out in the barn here, you're going to feel that kind of shag carpet there. Those are designed to absorb the nutrients that the cow needs. When we're looking at a rumen mid-lactation Holstein, we're probably looking at a 40-gallon vat. So that's as big as a garbage can. So I have certainly emptied enough rumens. We fill garbage cans all the time. So fairly large. What's occurring there is fermentation. So the breaking down of feed in the absence of oxygen, that's going to turn the carbohydrates that the cow consumes, break them apart into volatile fatty acids. So VFAs is the term or abbreviation we use for those. And then the VFAs are what the cows use to do what they need to do to the energy for their living and all that stuff. We're also going to have a lot of absorption in the rumen. The VFAs are going to be absorbed. They'll go to the liver of the cow. We're also getting all the electrolytes are going to be absorbed there as well. So sodium, chloride, potassium, the things we find in Gatorade, all those electrolyte drinks that help us run faster, jump higher, win the Super Bowl, as it were, right? The other next compartment is the reticulum. It has a honeycomb pattern that helps increase the absorptive surface area. You might have seen it on your on the menu as tripe, but you have these ridges that occur in here. You've got little bumps. All these help increase that absorptive surface area. Also, as these get tickled or scratched, that's going to lead to rumination. That's going to stimulate rumination. So those structures have a dual purpose. I tend to call the reticulum the director. The director decides where all the stuff that comes into a cow goes. So as the director, we're looking at something about the size of a football in a cow. That's right up front, and it's going to have the entrance and exit to that fermentation vat that is the rumen. So the esophagus comes down, empties into the reticulum. There's an esophageal groove in there as well. And then you're going to have the exit from that fermentation vat, which is called the roux, short for reticulo-omasal orifice. Basically, the connection between the reticulum and the omasum. The direction of material of feed all is kind of controlled by the reticulum. This is where the cut is made and then brought up. The cow chews it. It comes back. This is where gas is brought in from the rumen to be eructated, to be breathed out ahead of a breath from the cow. This is where particles are sorted between here and the omasum, are sorted to say, okay, this piece has been digested, that goes down the track or fermented. Other ones stay behind and are pushed back into the vat. So you kind of have a sieve going on there as well. Omasum is the next step in the process. Omasum has these laminae or leaves. There's these folds in the reticulum that help increase the absorptive surface area. So this is a rumen. We've kind of cut the ball and opened it up, kind of like a cantaloupe. And you can see that the food is going to go between these folds and then go to the rest of the digestive tract. So those folds are going to increase the surface area and lead to the major function of the omasum, which is absorption. So with a cow, you're looking at something somewhere between a volleyball and a soccer ball size. So something about that big. And cows, relatively speaking, have the largest omasums in the animal kingdom. And I think that's the way we've bred them, but that's a story for another time. This omasum, that sieve, decides what stays and what goes with the reticulum from the rumen. So big particles get pushed back, little particles can go down the track. Again, we have that roux, the reticulo-omasal orifice between those two. And one of the key functions of the omasum is absorption. It's not only going to absorb VFAs and electrolytes like the rumen, it's also going to absorb a whole lot of water. This reduces the volume of stuff that goes to the lower tract, recycles the water back to the rumen. So a whole lot of water is absorbed here along with VFA and electrolytes. The abomasum is the next step in the chain. We've got a folds to increase the secretory surface area. So you have these folds that occur there. This is the true stomach. This is just like yours or my stomach. You're going to have about 1 to 2 gallons of basically, if you took two milk jugs, stuck them together, that's about the size of the abomasum in a cow. The abomasum is going to secrete things that are going to start digestion. So pepsin helps start the protein digestion. And there's hydrochloric acid, which is going to kill the bacteria. It's going to denature various nutrients, and it's also going to help dissolve the nutrients into solution so they can be absorbed in the intestines. So this is sort of prep for the intestines. We're getting the food that came down from the rumen ready to go as we move forward. So this kind of summary slide, you have the structures for each of those compartments, what the main purpose is for each compartment: rumen, fermentation, absorption, and mixing. The reticulum does its direction, moving stuff around. Omasum does absorption, and the abomasum begins the true digestion with the pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Any questions on the parts of the ruminant forestomach? I'm guessing a lot of you have heard these things before.
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay, we'll keep moving. So if we're looking at the ruminal fermentation, we're trying to break down feed and turn it into something the cow can use. So that fermentation is going to occur in the rumen and reticulum. We're going to focus on the cellulose or cell wall, and there are bacteria in the rumen that are going to rip that apart for the cow. They're going to help the cow out. You've got microbes, bacteria are going to do most of the work, but you're also going to have protozoa and fungi. And then if you look at how many are there, you're looking at 10 billion microbes per milliliter. So if we look at the diagram right here, a milliliter is 1 cubic centimeter. So 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So that small little area has 10 billion creatures in it. That's a lot. That's about the highest concentrations you'll ever find of bacteria anywhere on the planet. So why are these concentrations so high? Why are there so many bacteria, fungi, protozoa in the rumen? It's because the rumen is more or less a perfect place to grow bacteria. And these are the reasons why, the attributes of the fermentation. One of the key things about the rumen, it has to be anaerobic. There's no oxygen there. Key function. It's got to be very wet. So we're looking at about 85% water in the rumen. That amount of water is coincidentally about the same as milk. Not really sure what that means, but that's about the same. It's a very warm environment. It's the same temperature as the cow. So 101.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Might get a little warmer in a hot summer day, might get a little cooler after a cool drink of water in the winter, but it's warm. It's buffered. We talk about sodium bicarbonate from the saliva. That means we're trying to keep the pH as close to neutral as we can. If it gets too acidic or too basic, we can't grow microbes. We have the input of substrate, i.e., feed comes in. New feed is always brought into the rumen, so the microbes always have a good fresh lunch to work with. There's constant mixing of that new feed, so bacteria get exposed continuously to a whole bunch of different new feeds. There's a term we call hypoosmotic. We're just going to say that means pleasant. It's a nice place to be. And the microbes also have trash removal. So they got all the food coming in, and then they get rid of all the trash. The cow gets rid of all the trash at the end of it. The feed that's been fermented completely, the VFAs, the gases that are produced, all that junk is removed out. So basically, if you're bacteria, everything's being taken care of. If you were to look at this as a summary of this list, you would say the cows have created the perfect environment for microbes to live and do what they need to help the cow. So this list of things that you see on here is about as good as it gets if you're a bacteria. Life is good. It doesn't get much better than living in a rumen. So we talk about the term. Some of you may have had this. I think I had it like 6th grade. The term symbiosis is a relationship between two species where both parties benefit. And we could say that our cows have a symbiosis with the microbes in their gut. The cows get some benefits from the relationship. The microbes get something from the relationship. The microbes, as we've talked, they get a perfect environment to live in for however long they live. I guess if you're a microbe, you don't live all that long. But while you're alive, life is good. The ruminants provide the microbes, as we talked about. We give them a place to live. They transport them to new feed, wherever that might be. If you're a little microbe, your legs are very, very short, and it's hard to get places. Whereas cows, big, long legs, they can move to new feed. Better worlds, pretty easy. We talked about garbage removal, the nutrients that come in, and the cows maintain a very pleasant environment for those bacteria. It's hypoosmotic, it's pushing neutral pH. Lots of good things are happening there. So it's a good place for the microbes to live. In return, those microbes will give something back to the cow, the ruminant. They're going to digest the cellulose and hemicellulose. Their bodies are going to become a high quality source of protein as they grow and die and move down the digestive tract for the cow. So those microbes become protein for the cow. They're going to grow. As those microbes grow, they're going to generate a whole series of vitamins that the cow might be able to use. So we talk about the B's, C's, and K, all produced in the rumen. And this is an important one that we don't talk about enough: detoxification of toxic compounds. Bacteria are really good at ripping things apart, especially the organic things, so they don't harm the cow. The VFAs that are produced, we're going to have acetate, propionate, and butyrate. You can call them acetate or acetic acid, propionate or propionic acid, butyrate or butyric acid. Those things are pretty much interchangeable. You're going to have the most of the acetate in the rumen, followed by propionate, then butyrate. So those are the VFAs. They account for the most of them. There are other ones. For those that are interested, those are what they look like. The acetate has 2 carbons in it. 1, 2. That C means carbon. The propionate has 1, 2, 3 carbons in it. Butyrate, 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons in it. The difference between the acid and the acetate is this thing here is present in the acid. It's gone in the acetate. It means they donated a proton to solution. So small difference, but for the most part, we're looking at the same thing, whether we say acetic acid or acetate. So what do the cows do with the VFA? Simply, they can either burn them for energy or use them to build things. So those VFAs are going to account for about 70% of the cow's energy needs. So that is a good source of energy for the cows as they're absorbed in the rumen, absorbed in the omasum. So how might they be used? So you've got your 3 VFAs here. Those are all going to be used or burned for energy. So acetate, propionate, and butyrate can all be burned for energy to provide the cow the energy she needs. What can we build with those various VFAs? Among other things, acetate and butyrate can be used to make milk fat. Propionate is going to be used to make lactose. 4 propionates stuck together will eventually form a lactose. Galactose, glucose stuck together, we get lactose. So propionate preferentially saved to make that lactose. That determines our milk volume. So we're looking at nutrition. We've got 6 different classes of nutrients. We've got water, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, minerals, and vitamins. We hope all that stuff gets to the digestive tract, gets to the intestines, and is able to be absorbed and hopefully in the right proportions so the cow has what she needs. If we're looking at a feed stuff, we're going to divide it into water and dry matter first. We take the whole feed. We could refer to that, the water and dry matter together, as fed. As it's fed, it has water and dry matter in it. But when we're balancing for a cow, we balance on a dry matter basis because our water contents and all our feeds are so variable. So we remove the water mathematically and focus just on the dry matter. With the water, we need lots of clean, fresh water for all our animals. That's every animal from a few days old. We want to make sure the calves have water. It's a little tougher this time if we have hutches this time of year. I can remember as a kid beating those ice blocks out and refilling them up to make sure that they had liquid water in the winter time. Your average lactating cow, probably about 25 gallons a day that it's going to drink. It's going to eat another 6 gallons. We remember milk is mostly water, so we want to make sure we don't short that nutrient so she can produce what she needs to. Several factors will influence whether it's more or less than that 25 gallons. How much does she produce? How many gallons a day of milk comes out of her? The more she produces, the more she will drink. How much feed she eats? The more she eats, the more she will drink. How dry is the feed that you're feeding her? Showtime, we try to get that dry hay in there so it absorbs water and swells up that so we get that deep body going. But dry tends to lead to more. Also, if you eat lots of salt, you're going to desire more water as well. That's why at the movie theater, they put lots of salt on your popcorn so you go back to buy more soda. So you're going to drink more there. So that's the water side. It's really not really fancy. Just got to provide lots of good, clean water as much as the cow will drink, and it's always there when she wants it. The other make up the dry matter, the carbohydrates, fats, protein, minerals, and vitamins. Carbohydrates comes from the chemical formula, the name. We have CH2O. H2O is water. So we have carbons hydrated. and that's where the name comes from. We have a ratio of 1 carbon atom to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. When we look at our carbohydrates, we're going to break them into different classes. We have the sugars, we have glucose, fructose, sucrose, all the sugars. They're small individual pieces. And then we'll have the complex carbohydrates, which are strings of sugars. In a cow's diet, that means we're going to string glucoses, individual glucose sugars together into long chains. Neither it'll be in a starch format or it's going to be in a cell wall format. Starch, we probably are somewhere around 30-35% of our cow's diet is starch. Cell wall, we're trying to get 30%-ish for our cows. The difference between the two is if the cow needs a rumen to digest the cell wall. It's put together in such a way that cows can't digest it, can't take it apart. We need the microbes to get the job done. So that cell wall is made up of hemicellulose, cellulose, and lignin. We can call it NDF for those three, or if we take the hemicellulose away, cellulose and lignin is acid detergent fiber, or ADF. So if we look at the cell, this is a diagram of a plant cell. We have all the sugars and starches are in the center, readily digestible by the animal. The outside green area is where the NDF and the cell wall is. This is not nearly as digestible as the simple sugars or the starch. In that, we said the cell wall is made up of these tan tubes here. Those are the cellulose. We got these little threads here. Those are the hemicellulose, and then lignin interspersed here and there. As well, these components are going to make up that cell wall. So we're going to divide our carbohydrates into two categories: cell contents, which are very available both to the cow and to the microbes, and then cell wall. We need help. No mammal can digest them, not you, not I, not the cow. We need help with the microbes. So that cell wall, in order to make it available, it must be fermented. It's also needed for proper rumen function. So why would a cow eat lots of cell wall when it can't digest it? When it has to create this forestomach, have all these microbes there. And the reason is cellulose is everywhere. We got plants everywhere the cow can eat. They don't have to run after it. It doesn't bite them when they try to eat it, or kick them when they try to eat it. It's readily available. So it's going to take more work to digest it and all that stuff. Because it's readily available, the cows are willing to make that trade-off. So cellulose is very abundant and it can't run away. Don't have to chase it down. I'm going to skip that slide and go to this one. We can divide our non-cell wall fractions into two different terms. One would be non-fibrous carbohydrate called NFC. And this is going to have sugars and fructans and starch and pectin and organic acids. There's kind of a range there of how fast it can be digested by the microbes, but all of it is available. We also hear NSC, non-structural carbohydrates. that doesn't have the pectins or organic acids, just the sucrose, the fructans, and the starch. And if we look at that graphically, plant carbohydrates, we can see that either it's cell wall, NDF, or it's non-fiber carbohydrate. And then if we subtract out down below here, the pectins and the organic acids, we'll have non-structural carbohydrates. All these bars are total carbohydrates. We can just break them down into different sections or different names. So what do carbohydrates do for the cow? Main purpose of them is to provide energy, both to the cow and to the microbe. Carbohydrates can also be used to build things. We talked about build or burn. So carbohydrates can be used to build all kinds of different things in the body. We take that carbohydrate just like Legos, and we build what we need in the body. We add things to it. So build or burn on this slide. And there's one more thing carbohydrates are going to do. Cows, because of the way they're designed, have to have that complex NDF, that carbohydrate, to maintain the digestive tract health. We need that NDF in the gut to clean and scour the lining, to keep things going, to keep things there. They're going to help provide things to chew on. So rumination, scratch factor by tickling the reticulum. You're also going to have a place for the microbes to live while they're in the rumen. So they'll eat the NDF from the inside out. We're looking at cows. When we balance our rations, we try to minimize or maximize the NDF, trying to get as much as we can in, but we're going to hit an upper limit pretty quick. With the cell wall, we want to make sure the cow stays healthy, the microbes stay happy, making sure she ruminates. We want to make sure we have a minimum NDF in the diet. So we maximize or set an upper limit on the starches and the sugars, and then we make sure we get a minimum NDF and try to balance those two things to get an optimum ration. With other cows, we tend to just try to get as much carbohydrate in as we can and let them work and digest to hopefully get enough energy but not get too fat. So speaking of fat, we have the fats in the cow. We're looking at 3 to 6% of the diet for our lactating cows. They're going to use that fat for energy. Fat is very energy dense. It's twice the energy density of a carbohydrate. So 2.25 times. So it's a good source of energy. We'll also use those fats for structures in the body. Cell membranes and different storage components are all made of fat. Fats are always going to also have also be hormones and vitamins. So those fats have a variety of different uses. The main one we're dealing with our lactating cows is energy. So who should get fat on your farm? Calves growing at a rapid rate need that extra energy, so we definitely want to make sure they have fat, especially in the winter, so they have enough energy to stay warm and to grow. So we feed extra fat to our calves in the winter. Heifers, we don't want to feed them fat. They don't need it. We try to avoid that. Dry cows, we don't want to feed those animals fat either for a number of different reasons. But our lactating cows, if there's an opportunity to do it right, will provide extra fat to them to help them produce milk and help maintain their body condition. Protein, the next nutrient up. What is the key difference between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins? Is the presence of nitrogen. Nitrogen is the defining characteristic of protein. So we want to, that's what separates it from carbohydrates and fats. Protein is used for structures in the body. All our muscle, all our bones, our skin are mostly protein. Enzymes, the engine of our body, is all made of protein. And then we have a number of different things that act as packages in the body to hold things, to protect the body. They'll also be made of protein. You're going to hear the term crude protein when you're feeding cows. And that's when we measure the nitrogen in a feed and we multiply by 6 1/4 to determine the crude protein. So it's a rough measurement. I'm using my thumb. That's about right. A rough and crude means rough in this case. And the reason we multiply by 6.25 is most of our feeds that we feed a cow are proteins are 16% nitrogen. So if you take 100% representing the protein, divide it by 16%, you're going to get 6 1/4. So that's why we have that number. There are other numbers, but that's the one we use for cows. Proteins are made of chains of amino acids. So you have these little rings that are stuck together. Each amino acid's a little different, means something different in the protein, but you got chain one after another. So you're looking at one amino acid, the AA down here means amino acid. We have a long chain, and this is the same pattern for every protein. So a cow, if we're looking at amino acids, a plant can make all the amino acids it needs. Microorganisms can make all theirs, but animals cannot. So we need, when we're thinking about protein, to make sure we get all the amino acids we need to a cow. So they fall into two categories, essential and non-essential. So those that are interested, those are the non-essential amino acids by name. They can generally be made in the body. These are the essential amino acids. We need to provide these when we feed our cows, make sure they get to the small intestine. So we'll talk about limiting ones that you might show up in dairy bowl here. So where does the amino acids come from for the cow? All that stuff happening in the rumen flows out the rumen, goes into the abomasum, and what gets to the small intestine is microbial protein and feed protein. Those are digested, broken down, breaking up into little pieces, and were absorbed as amino acids. The two most limiting amino acids for cows are going to be lysine and methionine. So you'll hear nutritionists talking about supplementing extra for that. So how do we get extra to our cows? We can feed more in the diet. Fish meal, corn gluten meal, corn products are generally high in methionine. Lysine can be provided by blood meal, fish meal, processed soybeans. Most farms now do protected amino acids. Or we try to produce more microbial protein in the diet. Minerals are going to be used for structures in the body. They're going to help maintain blood pH, water balance. They're going to be part of digestive juices. They're necessary for muscle contraction and nerve signals in the body. There's two different classes of proteins or minerals we talk about. These are the macro minerals. We need a pile you could see from across the room. So a tablespoon, a quarter of a pound, a half pound of these various minerals, calcium, phosphorus. They're usually in the bones, potassium, sodium, and chloride. They're electrolytes, and then sulfur and magnesium. The other class of minerals where we just need a tiny little pinch every day, they're micro minerals, also called trace minerals. The first 6 on this list, we definitely know we need, and we make sure that they're in the diet every day. These ones down here in the bottom, people are arguing how necessary they are. We usually don't worry about those. So iron, zinc, iodine, selenium, copper, and cobalt, we worry about. The rest sort of get there on their own. They're required in such small amounts at all. Last thing we'll talk about is vitamins. Comes from the term vital amines. These are small organic compounds that act as metabolic regulators. We need them in very tiny amounts, but they're indispensable. And probably in Quiz Bowl, you'll talk about fat soluble and water soluble vitamins. So here's the list of vitamins. The fat soluble are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. Water soluble are going to follow under the B complex. And there's 8 different vitamins under the B complex list. And then there's vitamin C and then choline. We kind of separate that one out for a couple different reasons. If we look at this kind of color coded, we've got vitamins that we need to provide. Those ones are definitely in black. We talk about providing a cow with A, D, and E. In red, we're talking about the vitamins that the rumen makes, the microbes in the rumen make already. So we don't usually have to worry about those. And then in blue, we've got vitamin C. For you and I are different than a cow. We need to eat vitamin C. Cows make their own. After a few weeks of age, they'll generate their own. So you don't need to feed vitamin C to a cow. So we don't need to provide orange juice on a daily basis to our cows. Although they like to eat oranges. I know that. I've seen that in Florida. So those are the different nutrients. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Mooney? You must have done such a great job explaining it all. They don't have any
Well,
questions.
did anybody learn anything? That's the first question.
I did. I always learned something. I heard it before.
Anybody else learn anything? Everybody agree cows are cool?
You're getting a lot of yeses in the chat.
So it's how do I stop this? Stop the share.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm seeing there. We got no. Oops. So cows are cool. Any questions I can answer for you?
Well, we're going to test their knowledge a little bit when we do the
Let's see how it works.
Someone wrote they learned they make vitamins, vitamin C.
Yep, they can make their own. So a cow will never get scurvy.
Are you good for me to start the Kahoot, Debbie?
I am.
Yep.
All right.
So thank you. Let's give a thank you to Dr. Mooney for his presentation about dairy nutrition and sharing his knowledge. And we're going to turn it over to Stephanie. She's going to get us going on our Kahoot.
All right.
We're
I'm
getting lots of
gonna
thank yous.
Thank you.
share our screen of the Kahoot game.
Thank you.
There it is. Up in the
All
corner.
right.
It's 640.
Yep. So the number is 6406196.
Enter. MOR.
And you should be able to type in kahoot.it, and it should ask for a game pin, and that's what you're gonna enter.
Okay. Oh, poor cow.
Here, I'll give you guys some music while you're waiting.
Look at this. No. All right, so questions and then we go. You see yourself? Yeah. Oh, this one is 2 randoms. Right there. Tony Stewart. Let's start. It says Tony Stewart. Oh, nice.
All right, we've got 35 kids. How we doing? Anyone else still logging in?
Is anyone having trouble getting on?
Is Addison in there? Looks like they're still trying.
Yeah, there's a couple more still getting on.
So while a couple of you guys are getting on here, just to go over the rules again. So you will have 25 questions They will either be multiple choice or true or false. It'll be 30 seconds for the question. So for the scoring, it is you get points if you get it correct. And if you answer correctly, it is points are tallied at how fast you can answer the question. I will read the question out loud for you guys, and then I will go through the answers with you also. All right, so we're still at 35. Anyone else? Throw in the chat if you're having a hard time getting in. If not, we'll get started here in about a minute. There's Addison. There's a couple others. All right, you guys good to go? All right, we will get started here. All right. Question 1. In which stomach compartment does hardware disease occur? Is it the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, or the abomasum? That would be the reticulum. All right, question 2. How many stages are there in the process of silage fermentation? 2, 3, 4, or 5?
It's not on your share screen, it's not showing like what numbers are what. There you go.
Can you see it now?
Yep, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So it is 4, the answer. All right, question 3. Where are fats broken down in a cow's body? Is it the reticulum, the omasum, the small intestine, or the liver? That would be in the small intestine. All right, question 4. Limestone contains high amounts of what mineral? Calcium, zinc, iron, or copper? Good job, guys. It is calcium. All right. Question 5. What does the acronym VFA stand for? Very fatty acids, very funny animals, volatile fatty fiber acid, or volatile fatty acid? It is a volatile fatty acid. Good job, guys. True or false? Feed cost is considered the largest cost to a farmer for milk production. True. Feed cost is the largest cost. All right, question 7. Many plies refers to which stomach compartment? The rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, or the abomasum? That would be the omasum. Question 8. Which of the following is not a legume used for grazing or hay? Is it clover, peas, wheat, or soybeans? That would be wheat. All right, question 9. What is the common name for ascorbic acid? Is it vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, or a VFA? That would be vitamin C. All right, question 10. In which part of the corn plant is the highest level of nitrates found? Is it in the leaves, the ear of corn, the tassel, or the bottom of the stalk? That would be the bottom of the stalk. All right. True or false? Volatile fatty acids are the building blocks of proteins. So that is false. Who can tell me, who wants to unmute and tell me what are the building blocks of proteins? Or you can write it in the chat. Any
Amino
guesses?
acids.
Amino acids. Good job. Yep, it's amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. That one was a little tricky because I ended it with acids. All right, question 12. What is the name of the on-farm tool used by dairy nutritionists, which is used to sort out feeds by the particle size? Is it called the Cornell shaker box, the Penn State particle separator, the Babcock tester, or the Thatcher separator? That would be the Penn State particle separator. Good job, guys. So the Penn State particle separator, you put your TMR in there and you shake it down, and it kind of helps tell the different lengths of the feed that you're feeding your animals, especially your haylage and your corn silage. All right, what popular feed stuff is a byproduct of sugar beet processing? Is it beet pulp, sugar pulp, molasses, or beet chips? Yeah, it's beet pulp. So if you guys ever show your 4-H animals, sometimes you'll feed them beet pulp, and that is the byproduct of sugar beet processing. Good job, everyone. Which stomach is known as the true stomach? Is that the rumen, the reticulum, the abomasum, or the omasum? That's the abomasum. It's the one that is most similar to ours. It's very acidic. So that is known as the true stomach. All right, question 15. Which is not a function of saliva? Moisten food, act as a buffer, provide fluid base for nutrients, or act as a digestive enzyme. So it would actually not act as a digestive enzyme. All right, question 16, true or false? Alfalfa seeds depend on bees for pollination. True, they do depend on bees for pollination. Bees and other insects are some of the biggest creatures that are responsible for all the food that we eat. If a feed contains 65% moisture, what percent is dry matter? Is it 15%, 25%, 35%, or 45%? Good job, everyone. Yeah, that one was a little bit of math. So at the end, you want to end up with 100%, right? So you're going to add 35% 5 and 65 together and get your 100%. Good job. All right, question 18. What forage produces the most energy per acre? Is it corn? Is it wheat? Is it oats or soybeans? Good job, everyone. That is corn, which is the most commonly fed food to cattle around the US. Question 19. The tiny finger-like projections called papillae line what part of the digestive system? Is it the rumen, the omasum, the small intestine, or the large intestine? That would be the rumen. Remember we said the rumen kind of looked like a shag carpet? That is from those little finger-like projections. All right, next question, guys. In pounds, how much does a bushel of corn weigh? Is it 42 pounds, 48 pounds, 56, or 62? That would be 56 pounds. All right. Question 21. Hay low in what mineral is best for dry cows? Is that iron, potassium, zinc, or nitrogen? That would be potassium. Good job, everyone. True or false? A herbivore is an animal that only eats plants. True. A herbivore means that they only eat plants. A carnivore is an animal that only eats meat, and an omnivore is an animal that eats both meat and plants. Good job, everyone. All right, question 23. What does a feed bunk score of 0 to 1 indicate about the feeding program and the herd? Does it mean that the cows are underfed? The cows have the correct amount of feed? The cows are being overfed? Or the cows are refusing feed? So if it is 0 to 1, that means that the cows are being underfed and that the feed bunk is essentially licked clean. There's really nothing left in it. All right, question 24. What part of the cow's stomach is known as the honeycomb? Is that the rumen, the reticulum, the abomasum, or the omasum? That is the reticulum. All right, and our last question of the evening. Which is the most important nutrient needed by the cow's body? Is it carbohydrates, fats, water, or vitamins? That was water. As Dr. Mooney had on his list of the 6 main things needed by a cow's body, water was the top one, because without water, they wouldn't be able to survive. And cows drink a lot of water during the day, anywhere from 25 to 50 gallons of water. Essentially your bathtub full. All right, we'll go through the podium. All right, great job, everyone.